there, stranger, my name is miizmi, and once a week I make videos discussing movies that I find particularly interesting, and this week I'm talking about strange magic. Now, online people either don't know of its existence, think it's some type of epic ripoff, or vehemently hate this movie. And I'm not really here to change anyone's mind or even claim this is a good movie by any means, because it's not really. I just think it gets an unnecessary amount of hate, and it's honestly not that bad of a movie. Some might even claim that it's enjoyable. And by some, I'm definitely talking about myself here, because this is a guilty pleasure movie of mine. And I'm aware that it's full of predictable tropes, cliche pop songs, and uncanny animation to some, but I don't really think it's that much different than your stereotypical Hallmark holiday movie. Like, you know, from the get-go, it's not going to be some intellectual watch that's really going to challenge your brain the way you see the world. It's really just a fun way to pass the time with some cheesy romance. So, this isn't going to be a video where I subvert your expectations and reveal to you this is some unappreciated masterpiece, because it's really not. It's really just going to be me rambling on about why I love this movie with all the good and the bad. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So this movie begins like most stereotypical fairy tales with the unrolling of a scroll as the narrator explains the difference in the fairy kingdom and the dark forest. Well, actually, you just tell that there are two different kingdoms and never really explains why they're separated or don't seem to get along, which is a real shame because it would be really interesting to see the world building. But we're told that primroses grow along the border, which is used for love potions, before we see our main character, Marianne, for the first time flying around singing Only Fools Rush In, and accidentally crosses over into the dark forest where goblins are cutting down said primroses. Probably one of the most credible criticisms of this movie is its excessive usage of songs, because even for someone like me who likes this movie and enjoys animated musicals, this movie really did way too much in the worst of ways. It officially features 13 different songs, and I say officially because there were other songs on top of that just weren't singing in full. And even from the official list, characters would periodically sing those songs again throughout the movie, so there was a lot of singing in this movie. And it definitely felt like one just ended for another to begin right away, so it became very tedious at moments. I know some people have an issue with it all being pop songs, but personally I don't really have much of a problem with that because I feel like it really did fit the scenes that they were put in, although again, it was kind of excessive and I really did wish they cut them down quite a bit. Especially the scene where Marianne sung Stronger, that whole entire scene was just max cringe. Anyways, Marianne frantically flies off and spots her fiancé Roland, who we learn is clearly the antagonist from the get-go, with charming and lovely lines such as,
"You could have been killed.
Oh, don't look.
Or worse, seriously disfigured. Who's the big girl? You got a sword, yep.
My future king.
Yeah, king. I'll have an army. Now go get yourself all prettified. Today has got to be perfect."
Meanwhile, the goblins from earlier rush back to the castle, mistakenly thinking she was Celia Primrose, and here we're introduced to the Bog King, who despises love and orders all the primroses to be cut down. Which in hindsight is pretty ineffective, because if he truly hates primroses so much, why did he never think to uproot them? That way they would permanently be gone, rather than having to cut them down every spring. Marianne, realizing that she never gave Roland her boutonniere, flies off to give it to him, only to see him kissing another fairy. I find it really interesting that even though Roland is singing the exact same song with her in this scene, he never actually sings the verse "I'm in love with you." Marianne dashes home and cries her sorrow into the most beautiful rosebud I've ever seen and calls off her wedding. Not discussing the details with anyone, instead singing a song about heartbreak, which leads to a montage of her training and becoming a certified badass complete with a full emo makeover. She heads out looking for Dawn, who hides with her friend Sunny because she's tired of Marianne's interference with her love life. The two of them make plans for her to dance with their crush at the spring ball, and she begins to fret, so Sunny starts singing everything's going to be alright, and their noise awakens a beast, a lizard in this case. They're chased and end up in the dark forest where Marianne comes to the rescue and lectures them for being careless, cautioning with the story the Sugar Plum Fairy, who is locked away for eternity for making love potions out of primroses. They head home and Marianne is reluctantly dragged to the ball, where she is ambushed by Roland singing for forgiveness on his knees, and she responds in the most cringiest way possible by singing Stronger and kicks him out.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger.
Don't lose the jewels.
Say goodbye.
Sunny for some reason decides to leave the ball at that moment and peep at Dawn through the crack of the door, rather than, I don't know, just stay inside to watch her, which would seem a lot less creepy, and gives Roland the perfect opportunity to sweep in and plant the thought of getting a love potion for them both. He reasons that Sunny's small stature makes him the perfect candidate to sneak into the dark forest. Before crossing into the dark forest, Sunny notices all the primroses have been cut, but remembers the petal that he hid before and begins his journey. Sentient mushrooms lining his path pass along the message of an elf in the forest in a game of telephone that translates to,
"A tall chef is into shark storage."
once presented to the Bog King, who gets frustrated and flies to the front of the line to retrieve the true message and sends his goons off to hunt Sunny down, before being bombarded by his mother's attempt to find him a partner. Meanwhile, Sunny is cornered and scared by the imp, who leads him to the Sugar Plum Fairy. She makes him the potion on the condition that he frees her, and once freed, she warns him about the imp who just wants to spread her potion, but never actually explains why that's a bad thing. I mean, she's the one that made the potion to begin with, so clearly she doesn't care about drugging people without their consent. So what does it really matter if it's one person at a time versus a whole club of people? Well, I suppose the only real reason why she has a problem with the imp spreading it around en masse like that is because she wants exclusivity. Also, why is there seemingly no end to this potion made out of one single solitary primrose petal? I mean, if there's that much of the potion going around using just one petal, she can clearly douse the entire population 100 times over with how many primroses are at the border and how few residents we actually see during the entire movie in both kingdoms. But maybe the Bog King should be a little proactive and serious about his approach to destroying the primroses for real if he truly sees the danger in them and hates them as much as he claims he does. After her warning, the Sugar Plum Fairy revels in her freedom, flying off being carelessly loud and blasé, resulting in her recapture, and the Bog King leads his army towards the elf town for the potion. There, Sunny sings at the spring festival while Marianne reluctantly attends to keep watch over Dawn, only to leave almost immediately once she spots Roland. And once she flies up, Dawn ends up dancing with Roland for some reason, which is pretty messed up to be so chummy with your sister's cheating scumbag of an ex, and makes me really question their family dynamic because this isn't the only time that they've taken sides with Roland.
He's so romantic.
Whatever happened that wedding day must have been really bad. Because now she's always hovering.
And Roland may have a few flaws,
Understatement.
but he still loves you. Roland. Yes.
Oh, no.
What do you need?
Her father especially seems to be very adamant and insistent on pushing her back together with Roland. He seems to be quite sexist in his views that women need men to survive.
But if not Roland, then there has to be someone else. You'll be a stronger ruler with a king at your side.
But also seems to have an issue with Dawn because she's too flirtatious and too dependent on men.
Help me keep an eye on that flirtatious sister of yours.
Can't really have it both ways, old man. All that aside, it actually makes me wonder if she ever even told her family about him cheating, because she never explained the reason why she broke off their engagement, and the only time she ever mentioned him cheating was right before she sung her song in rebuttal to his. But no one actually reacted, so I'm not sure if that means they just didn't hear her, or they did and they chose to ignore that, which would be really messed up.
Then again, the king called it a misunderstanding, so maybe he did know about it.
I just want to see the happy Marianne I used to know. Before the Roland misunderstanding.
We also never get a true time frame of how long it went from between her breakup to now, because the whole training montage would make sense if it happened over a year's time and now they're back in spring again. But seeing as how the main characters end up falling in love within an hour later in the movie, it wouldn't be a far stretch to say this only happened over a day. And that would just make me even more messed up that they are trying to push her so hard to get back with her cheating ex so soon. I mean, pushing her to get back with him at all is horrible, but then just the day after he cheated would be even more horrendous. But anyways, creatures of the dark forest take over the plane van and disarm Marianne, who flew back, while the imp jumps Sunny and leads to Dawn getting dusted as she's taken hostage by the Bog King as ransom for the stolen love potion. He sings a song about being bad and gets punched in the face by Marianne, then leaves, giving them until moondown to return the potion. Marianne attempts to give chase, but her father holds her back and gives Roland the army to bring Dawn back. Marianne takes off anyways, while the king turns his ire on Sunny, and Roland throws him under the bus, causing the entire elf community to shun him as well. However, he's able to force one of the elves to join him in his journey for the search of the potion, which ends in many shenanigans, including the lizard from earlier in the movie, in love with Sunny, and a variety of odd covenants of random creatures who are eventually locked up in the cages by Bog King. Dawn is released from her sight and launches into a love song, clinging to the Bog King who fails at intimidating her and orders for her to be locked up in the dungeon. This causes her to lament and sadly sing, making everyone cover their ears in pain. Bog King eventually gets fed up and heads down to unsuccessfully threaten her again, is taken aback that she made him a boutonniere, and struggles even further to be mean. She takes it as a sign of his affection and launches into another song, but stops and sleeps when he tells her to. I get that some people find Dawn to be a very annoying character, and this scene perfectly highlights why, but I don't know, I kind of see her as that cute, annoying type where you can't really stay angry, so I'm not really mad, and I don't really hate her. Especially if you see how uncomfortable she makes Bog King, and the fact that she calls him Boggy Woggy Kingy Wingy.
By Boggy Woggy Kingy Wingy.
Bog King.
Boggy Kingy Wingy.
King.
Kingy Wingy.
King.
Good night, sweet Boggy Woggy.
Which is probably the best pet name I've ever heard, and like one of my favorite lines in all of cinematic history. It's so awful that it's good. So yeah, I have a bit of a soft spot for her, so don't judge me. But Sunny eventually gets the potion back on the imp with the help of Lizzie the Lizard and runs into Roland's army as they make their way through the forest. Roland, being the insecure, jealous wimp he is, can't stand his army being in awe of Sunny's accomplishments and shames him for taking the potion for himself as they make their way to the castle and takes the lead as the show of his dominance. Meanwhile, at the castle, Marianne breaks through the roof and begins fighting with the Bog King while singing a song, of course, and it turns into a slightly flirtatious scene before they both tire and head down to see Dawn and the locked-up love potion creatures who are all singing. Marianne is shocked to learn Dawn is a love potion to the Bog King and tries to take her away, but Dawn sides with Bog King and goes into her cell willingly at his command. So Marianne asks the Sugar Plum Fairy for an antidote. The fairy creates a long list of demands, and while they wait for one of Bog King's minions to gather the ingredients, his mother leads them upstairs to a loved-up dining room. The two of them, feeling awkward and set up, rip apart the decorations and share their disdain of love, destroying things until Marianne stomps on his boutonniere that he actually likes. The Sugar Plum Fairy reveals that the antidote is actually a riddle, and all the supplies were just her shopping, and the mushroom telephone tries to tell Bog King an army approaches.
An arm skis on roaches.
He dismisses the message, still struggling to decipher the riddle. The Sugar Plum Fairy grows bored and frustrated while waiting for them to figure it out and decides to give them the answer through a story. Bog King's failed love story, to be more specific. She reveals that Bog King had once tried to use a love potion on his crush, but it failed because she was already in love with someone else, which makes the answer to the riddle true love. And the Bog King sends her to be locked away again. It is probably the lamest pathetic reasonings to hate love, made worse by the fact that Marianne sympathizes with his struggles, and they bond over the fact that neither of them have experienced true love, despite the fact that only Marianne's experience is legit and has any relevance to the situation. And it's a real shame because the writers really could have done something with this plotline that still kept the love potion, but thought that it was immoral to try and force someone to love you, because this is a fairy tale after all that we're supposed to teach kids something with, and it would have been probably really great to teach them true consent, since some adults still seem to struggle with that to this day. And they wouldn't have even had to rehaul an entire movie, because again, with some simple tweaks, they could have changed the entire message. For example, they could have just made it that Bog King was the one being love potion rather than the one using the love potion. And whatever motive the girl would have to use a love potion on him doesn't really matter, since we don't really delve deep into that story. So it could have been that she just was someone who wanted to be queen, or that maybe they were already in a relationship, but because of Bog King's surliness and his unexpressiveness, she feels insecure and wants to make sure that he actually loves her, so she gets the love potion, dusts him. However, it doesn't work because he was already in love with her. But the betrayal is what cuts deep, and so he banishes her from the land and locks up the Sugar Plum Fairy for making the love potion to begin with. That way the Bog King actually has a real reason to hate love, and the entire story can go on the way it did, because he would still be extremely distrusting towards other people, because this time around he was actually betrayed. And he would have a reason to hate primroses and lock up the Sugar Plum Fairy for making the potion to begin with. And when she continues to make the love potion for Sunny later in the movie, it would make sense for him to fly into a rage that she still had the audacity to make it in the first place, and it shows that she never learned the errors of her ways, and because he knew the danger of it, he went out to go get it. It still wouldn't fully excuse him actually kidnapping someone, but at the very least, it would give him a legitimate reason to have so much hatred and anger. Whereas in this version, it's honestly just because he's a nice guy who can't handle rejection, which isn't great. Also, it would have explained the nonsensical feud between his mom, Griselda, and the Sugar Plum Fairy, because in the movie, they're snapping with each other over who could successfully get Ball-King a match. With Griselda being irritated the love potion didn't work.
It's so amusing how you keep trying.
You're one to talk with your magic recipe for failure.
Oh, it works.
It works? Pah! And explain what happened to this one.
Even though she seemingly knew it wouldn't.
There are no shortcuts to love.
Now, like I said, if Ball-King was the one being love potion, it would make perfect sense for a mother to despise a person who created a potion to drug her son with and try to force one on him. Whereas in the movie, she's basically just angry that he's still single despite using the love potion. I don't really think it needs to be said, but being angry that a potion didn't help your son force someone to be with him, rather than being angry at him for trying that in the first place, is morally corrupt. So again, minor little tweaks in the story could have been perceived a lot better with actual morals, but I digress. Marian shares that she knew deep down Roland didn't really love her, but she was so caught up in his looks that she didn't see how ugly his insides really were. They connect in that moment and decide to go stretch their wings together, and he's able to show her the beauty in what she only saw as dangerous and ugly before.
Strange magic. Never gonna be the same again.
Never gonna be the same again.
And let me tell you, the scene where he carried her through the brambles, my heart literally just died. I mean, I think all of the scenes in their little love song was actually really beautiful, and the animation was A+. Quick note, I know that a lot of people also really hate the animation and think it's very uncanny, but I don't really see that as such, and I wonder if that's because I grew up watching like Arthur and the Invisibles and Final Fantasy, and it feels like amalgamation of those two styles plus a bit of epic. So I actually never hated the animation. I actually think it's quite pretty. But besides the point, the reason why the scene of him carrying her through the brambles gets me every single time, I don't really know how to explain this, but something about like humanoid characters with wings just makes my heart really happy. The best example I can really think of to explain this is in Gargoyles when Goliath wraps his wings around Demona. Like something about that just like my heart. And even like early in the movie when Dawn was unraveling from her sack, something about like the wings around a humanoid character just, it's fantastic. I love it. It's just so sweet that Marian puts her guard down in that moment, being vulnerable to admit that even though she's a very strong, fierce, independent woman, there are some parts of her that are quite delicate, in this scenario, wings, and she trusts him enough to be the one to protect her and carry her through, making sure that she's not hurt. And just that amount of trust she puts in him is just so pretty. I love it. I love the scene so much. And overall, I actually really love the theme of Beauty and the Beast in this movie, because unlike other ones, they actually stick with that. What I mean by that is, in the original version, the Beast eventually turns back into a handsome prince, and even in Shrek, Fiona ends up turning into an ogre. So on both scenarios, our main characters are on equal playing fields look-wise. Whereas in this one, they stay Beauty and the Beast because that's how they were born. Magic has nothing to do with their appearances. And I really love that dynamic, especially because Marianne has an ex, which most beauties don't. And the fact that he is also a beauty, it just really adds to the dynamic, especially when he expresses his disdain for the relationship. I don't know, I just really like it. I think it's unique. And it adds an interesting element to the entire story. At the end of the love song, Ball-King pins a flower in her hair and ends up seeing an army approaching his castle and feels betrayed, flinging her into the spiderweb as he races off to intercept them. Roland enters the castle and sends his guard to get in place for an unknown plan. While Ball-King charges in ready for a fight, Roland pulls out the love potion for an exchange. The Ball-King has Dawn brought out while his goblins are scaring Marianne, and he angrily accuses her of tricking him, while she tries to explain none of this was what she had planned. Roland is surprised by the turn of events and expresses his disgust at their lovers' tiff, and tries to dust Marianne, which enrages the Ball-King, and a fight among the two ensues. At one point, Dawn joins the melee to protect Ball-King and ends up being held captive by rogue Roland, causing both Marianne and Ball-King to hold him at sword point. Roland feigns surrender before giving his guards the covert, and they enact a plan which consists of swinging cages into the dungeon into the tree base, causing cracks and eventually breakage in the foundation. In the confusion, Roland shoves Dawn at Ball-King and flies off with Marianne, who struggles in his grasp before shoving him through some rocks and flies back for Dawn. She stumbles into Bogking at the collapsing school entrance, and he hands her Dawn as he holds up the school just long enough for Marianne to escape with her sister, before the whole structure collapses and falls down the cliff, presumably to his death. Once they make it back to safety, Sunny, who went in to save Dawn earlier but got sidetracked releasing the sugar foam hair and all the caged lovebirds, rushes over to a sobbing Dawn and holds her while singing It'll Be Alright, which dissipates the love potion's effect as she realizes she loves him. Which is kind of a lame ending because Sunny was also just a nice guy who didn't let her have her choices, because even if she's flirtatious, what does it really matter at the end of the day? Because he felt like it was his right to be her lover since he's the best friend who always sticks around. He love potioned her, so I don't really like that he didn't really have a redemption arc with her. He just showed up after she was saved and was like, oh, I'm glad you're okay, and now you love me. Not my favorite. Marianne mourns over Bog's death, but mere seconds later he shows up, injured but alive, and is dragged by his mother to reconcile with Marianne. In this scene, for some reason, everyone, including the elves, cheers for his return, and the king himself holds back his guard from charging at Bog, which I don't really understand because so far they haven't really seen anything that would indicate what Bog has done, that he saved Dawn. They weren't there at the entrance to see all this happening.
I don't really know how I missed this the 3 times I watched this movie to take notes, but the elves were there. It's just the king that showed up after Bogking was resurrected. So my point still stands that
It will not negate the fact that he stole Dawn to begin with, especially for the king. Like, why would you hold off the guards from attacking this person who you knew took away your daughter and threatened you guys? But right before Bogking and Marianne reunite, Roland literally drops out of the sky and love dusts her. Marianne is seemingly affected until she decks Roland over the edge, causing him to be dusted himself, and later ends up in love with one of Bogking's earlier candidates, Fly.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Oh, I think I got one of your antennae.
Now, I know no one is asking for this but me. I get it, but just hear me out, okay? I'm not asking for a full-length sequel. Short animation would be fine with me, but I think it would actually be really interesting if they explore this dynamic. Because historically, every single time we have a Beauty and the Beast story, it's always the male being the beast and the female being the beauty. So I think it would have been actually really interesting to see the dynamic being flipped, where the guy is the beauty and the girl is the beast. And the interesting fact about this one is that he's already been love potioned. So I think over the course of the short or the movie, whatever, him actually learning to fall in love with her for real and learning the errors of his way and becoming a new person. And once the love potion dissipates, it's been so interesting for her to realize that, oh my god, you didn't love me this whole entire time. You were under the effects of a love potion. So now he has to convince her that, like, no, I don't just love you because of the potion. I love you for you. And of course she would believe him because she's like, of course you didn't love me. Of course you have to have a potion because someone like you would never be in love with someone like me. So that's where you get an interesting dynamic. And then I'll also have taught him the lesson of, like, love potions are bad and what you did was bad. So yeah, I think that was interesting, but of course I know people already hate this movie as it is, so no one's really asking for a sequel, but I kind of am. Anyways, Marianne and Bogking awkwardly check up on each other before Dawn interrupts and officially breaks up with him. And I love the fact that he corrects her and calls himself Boggy.
No, Bog.
Buggy.
It's never going to work between us.
She then takes Marianne away and thanks her for saving her, and sings a song to encourage her to go after Bogking while he is being encouraged to do the same by his mother and the elves. He tries to sing Only Fools Rush In, but she takes over, serenading him with a rock song that suits the both of them better. And the movie ends with a kiss, with probably some of the most bizarre, trippy editing, kaleidoscope type thing I've ever seen. And I feel it's only right to end my video the way they ended their movie, so you get the full visual and audio effect without any distraction. So, a quick summary. Stranger is a guilty pleasure movie that isn't as bad as everyone thinks it is. As long as you go to the mindset that you're watching a Hallmark holiday-esque movie, you might enjoy it as well. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I've been me, aka miizmi, and I'll see you when I see you. Enjoy!
Wild thing, I think I love you. But I will